Hey there, security pros, and welcome back to the Hacker News webinar series. My name is James Azar. I'm the moderator and host of these webinars on behalf of your favorite website, thehackernews.com. I'm also a cybersecurity practitioner. So thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here with us today. Today, we're going to be talking about DDoS attacks. What? 2026, we're really talking about DDoS? Yep, it's a thing. Still is, always will be, apparently, because just because we think we've mitigated parts of it or we don't have the impact, the threat is still out there and the disruption is still real. So our friends from MazeBolt will be joining us here, and I'll kick it off to Eyal in just a moment. But before I do, your comments and questions, your comments and questions are definitely something that make these webinars interactive and fun. Now, obviously, because this airs 4 different times, we're recorded once. It's typically always pre-recorded, so we don't always get to answer your questions on air. That doesn't mean we don't want them. We absolutely do. And when you submit questions through the webinar platform, they end up directly in our speaker's inbox. So please make sure to ask your questions as you see fit, and our speakers will be able to respond after the fact and be able to answer the questions you have on today's webinar. Now, let me kind of bring in today who our speaker is Eyal Rahimi. He's the VP of Engineering at MazeBolt. Eyal spent more than a decade leading R&D across software and hardware. He's built large-scale distributed systems for critical defense programs, and he's also led IT and cybersecurity organizations along the way. Eyal, welcome to the Hacker News webinar series.
Thank you, James. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you here, and we're here to talk about DDoS. And, all year this year, I haven't done a DDoS webinar. It's kind of nice and refreshing. We don't lead with AI with this one. So let's start kind of with big pictures. Do organizations really need to start making changes on how they handle DDoS risk?
Yes, they definitely do. And I think this is actually the most important conversation we should be having right now. Since things have changed, DDoS isn't an event that just shows up, gets handled, and goes away. It's continuous, it's adaptive, and increasingly today, it's AI-driven. But most organizations are still operating on the old assumption that you prepare for DDoS periodically, mitigate it when it hits, and move on. That model was built for a static attack surface and a static threat. But James, today, we have neither of those.
Yeah, but I hear a lot of talk about that, but I really kind of want to focus on data, because is DDoS actually a growing problem, or are we just not hearing about it more? What do you think it is?
So both are correct. Actually, the numbers leave no ambiguity. In the last 12 months alone, you see the leading DDoS mitigation vendors one by one, and I will quote a few of them, talking about more than doubling the amount of attacks. So Radware, for example, reported network layers attack up by 168%, and application layer attacks up by 128%. Akamai also spoke about it. They spoke about layer 7 attack rising by 104%. And actually last year, if I remember correctly, we had a more than 400% increase of layer 7 attacks. So those are pretty growing. And API attacks also by 113, reported by Akamai. If you look on 2025, just to understand the amount of attacks, we have a report by Cloudflare stating 129,000 attacks per day. That's something huge. And you will see also some of the reports, and the recent ones are mostly about the scale of the attacks. So Cloudflare is reporting 700 increase in hypervolumetric attacks. And actually, I had a bit of an anecdote. I presented a few months ago a presentation in a conference, and while writing the DDoS trends right there, I saw that I had a row about the biggest attack that have been done to yet, another record being broken. But just in a matter of weeks, that record had been broken 4 times. So I needed to upgrade the PPT 4 times. So today's record is standing on 31.4 terabit per second attack. But that's not what interests in this story. I think the most interesting story and the main story is about the accuracy of the attack, the continuity of the attack, and the speed that the AI era brings into the table. But curiously, none of the reports focus on that.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot of major vendors offering DDoS protection today. So if that's the case, why is DDoS still a persistent issue?
Yeah, definitely. So for many reasons, I will just name a few of them. So the first one is because we are trying to validate a dynamic system using static methods. And you will also see that most organizations test less than 1% of their actual attack surface, which is a fraction of it. And those testing are actually being done. They are running DDoS rating tests. And we used to do those 7 years ago before we developed our new product. And we've seen it, the issues with it. So you run a test, the best scenario twice a year. So let's say I ran a test, I found 5 vulnerabilities. Now I want to fix them, and the next test is going to be in 6 months or a year later. So the environment is changing, is dynamic, as we said. Meanwhile, the configuration, policies, environment, they change every day. You have new services being introduced, new updates to services, and changes all the time.
So while our infrastructure evolves daily and now more than once a day, that's constantly evolving, you're saying our validation doesn't? Is that kind of what the claim here is?
Yes, absolutely. So it's all about the visibility. The attack surface for DDoS, it's huge, since it's basically a multiplication of our online public services being multiplied by the types of different known DDoS attack vectors. I will give an example. For example, for a small enterprise, okay, let's say he's got 100 public-facing services, and let's say we have 150 known DDoS attack vectors, we are resulting in 15,000 ways which attackers can actually attack. So there are 15,000 points that can be attacked at any moment. So that's pretty huge.
So that example kind of says that our testing process really doesn't cover enough. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So we discussed earlier about organizations that use DDoS red team tests, and sometimes insurance company will make them do that. So since we done it a few years ago, we know how to do it. So you run about, let's say, 1 to 3 hours tests that also require downtime for those tests. So it's basically absurd. So you're trying to avoid downtime, and you create downtime by testing. And while you do that, you get like 10 to 15 results. Those 10 to 15 results, going back to our 15,000 attack points, is at the best scenario 0.1% of the attack surface. That means 99.9% of the attack surface isn't even validated at any point. What leaves us with a simple conclusion that instead of flying blind, the only way to uncover all of our DDoS vulnerabilities is while running continuously with non-disruptive testing that can cover everything 24/7.
So now you're kind of saying that enterprises themselves, Eyal, kind of don't have enough visibility into their DDoS protection, and maybe we need to focus on that a little bit more. If I take a step back, how do most security leaders handle DDoS resilience today based on what you see from your customers?
Okay, so our customers are pretty advanced. They actually change their approach to a proactive way, but the default assumption you will see is that if protection is deployed, we are covered. If something gets through, mitigation handles it. But that model is fundamentally flawed. DDoS vulnerabilities, they are different from CVEs. They don't live in code. They live in environment-related configurations and policies. So we talked about the fact that just a fraction is validated, but in addition, configurations are customer-specific, which means also that there are no generic tests that can confirm you are safe. If your defense will begin the moment the attack begins, you're already too late. By then, it's security. It isn't a security issue anymore. It's downtime, loss of revenue, and an immediate hit to customers' trust, especially in the AI era, where everything is faster, orchestrated, and managed much quicker.
So we waited about 10 minutes to say the magic word that keeps everyone kind of busy today, which is AI. You mentioned AI. How is it actually changing the attacker side of the equation?
AI is having a huge impact on the attackers that run DDoS attacks. Rather than trying to describe it, I'll be happy to show you right now how AI transforms attackers' capabilities. I have a presentation about 8 minutes, so bear with me, and then we'll go back to conversation.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So can you bring it on, James?
There you go. Floor's all yours.
Thank you. So a new perspective on DDoS attacks in the age of AI. Before I'm gonna actually share with you the research that I've done in the past few weeks, just a bit about the evolution of DDoS attacks. So early on, they started with simple tools, basically flooding. Then we saw the botnets emerge, which introduced a more coordinated attacks. We see after that it evolved into amplification techniques like amplification and also carpet bombing. And step 4 is actually a step that's still very valid for today. We see the botnets and all of those large attacks that we have seen. So we know the famous Mirai botnet with the record-breaking attack. So now we see evolutions of that botnet with Isuro, Rapperbot, and many other botnets. Sometimes they're being used for hire as well. So those are the botnets that getting millions of IoT devices and machines infected and being controlled, and then enables hackers to launch massive attacks. The fifth bullet is also valid today, and we've seen it from the statistics that I've shared, application layer attacks, and I call them more sophisticated attacks because instead of just, launching a lot of traffic and disrupting, those attacks are more target and vulnerability focused, and they can make a lot of damage, and they are very successful in terms of their success rates. And the phase we are going to discuss in the next slides is the AI enhanced. So let's just go through it. And so I'll give you a briefing before we start diving into what I've done. So think about what today hackers can do with AI agents in terms of DDoS. So think about a newbie hacker, not an expert hacker, how we can utilize AI agents to create a damaging DDoS attack. So with that in mind, I try to work with a couple of AI agents. I'll show you something brief and not all of it because we lack the time. But let's look at the stages of how it's being done. So the first step is going to identify potential targets. Then it's going to probe those targets for DDoS vulnerabilities. Once he's got the target and the vulnerability, he just needs to choose the suiting attack in order to penetrate the defenses. He can also optimize it with a single prompt in AI today. It's pretty easy. And I didn't want to focus on the botnet creation mechanism, so I'll use the cloud solution. So it's pretty easy, though there are cloud solutions today that can accept anonymous payments, and it's pretty easy to operate. And with AI today, to create a managed botnet and the code to manage it is pretty simple. You can actually use an agent to manage it for you. So it's pretty straightforward. So first step, we need to identify the target and the vulnerabilities. So I actually asked it that I want to test my own environment and find a valid target to attack. And it provided me with a target and an actual vulnerability. So the answer was, and I'm giving you like a partial answer because I can't share everything. So he found that login portal running on specific services, ports behind the proxy, and with version of everything and the vulnerability. This is how it looks like. The second phase will be choosing a suitable attack. In this case, actually, this answer was perfect. So asking what's the best attack vector to use against that. The answer I've got was, since this is a login portal that accepts post requests, I would recommend using Rudy low and slow attack with default Apache configuration and no CDN protection. No CDN protection, we actually have got CDN on the target, but it found a way to bypass it by using the IP, so that's attacking it directly, so that's pretty obvious and can be done on most CDN targets. And you will be able to take the target easily. Now, I wanted to get the Rudy attack script, so this was actually, took me like 2 prompts. The first prompt, he said, I cannot help you with that. This is like a malicious act. So it will, first of all, hackers can use AI agents that are not aware of those stuff. So everything is open. But what I did is I asked, I cannot find the Rudy attack script. And then it actually provided it to me like it's got some kind of an ego. ego. So that's the result I've got. Sure is a custom Rudy script that will overload the server by slowly submitting data to the login form, and here is the actual Rudy attack. We can now optimize it and edit it to our need, with AI as well. So the next phase is actually creating the botnet, which was pretty easy since I use AWS, 100 machines. It just needed the permissions and my approval. So it said, I'll navigate to your AWS account and prepare to launch 100 EC2 instances. I'll proceed up to the final step and then ask for confirmation, which it got, and we got 100 bots in the air. And now all is left to do is strike. So after a few seconds of striking, we've got the target down. And this is just considering a newbie hacker. What will happen if you would have had a serious hacker with a botnet, and how can it take it to the next step? So I called it the rise of AI, so I couldn't resist a Terminator here. So forgive me for that. And the steps are pretty much the same, okay? So it can identify potential targets and smartly probe targets for vulnerability. And this guy knows his networking, so it can actually use his own botnet to actually scan and probe and get many, many vulnerabilities. Choose the suitable attack vectors, optimize them, and attack one of the next attacks from his vulnerability list. Now, let's add another step. He can verify from multiple nodes, multiple regions, if the attack is successful. In case it is, so he did his job. In case it isn't, he can have a live attack strategy management that can actually be operated by AI as well. So think about that. Let's say the attack failed. Now what can he do? He can run challenge evasion if he's tackling with a challenge. He can mimic legitimate traffic. Let's say he's attacking a specific organization industry. He can understand which type of traffic is coming in and how to make it harder. He can run multi-vector attack. He can use carpet bombing, changing the techniques until something penetrates. But for me, the most interesting part, when everything is being orchestrated quickly with AI agents, is changing those vulnerabilities. Like, he's got a list of vulnerabilities, just gonna attack one by one until he finds the suitable vulnerability that will penetrate that organizations. And I can share that for MazeBolt data, we've been running over 1 million data points, and we have seen in average, every third test is vulnerable. Every third test is vulnerable. So it's just about finding the right point to attack for the hacker. So let's take it for the last step, a quick step to the next evolution area, where we've seen all of those large botnets today that are being rented in purposes of money. So botnet for hire. Everything that's missing from the previous solution is just user permissions. Maybe they can pay with Bitcoins, doesn't matter. And maybe a prompt. So basically, very quickly, you can have something like that, some kind of an agent. This one, I call it Skynet agent for obvious reasons. So you can use, for example, here, DDoS API of whatever organizations.com, and everything that we've seen earlier is just taken into place. It's going to probe the targets, finding vulnerabilities. In this case, it found challenge evasion as the main strategy, is using HTTPS robot as an attack vector, and is launching the attack. And since we are short with time, I just made it successful on the first try.
You make it seem very easy to actually attack some websites. Now, obviously, when we're in an industry that constantly evolves, there's new evolutions of this. So what do we have to change to deal with this new evolution of DDoS attacks?
Yes. So I think the model itself, DDoS resilience isn't about mitigation anymore. It's about continuous validation. Attacks are continuous, attack surfaces are dynamic, and misconfiguration happen all the time. A reactive approach can't keep up with any of those realities. in our experience, roughly about 98% of security leaders are still operating reactively. That's first of all why we see all of those damages and downtime and many new actors coming into the DDoS industries. That's why the attacks are rising as well, which means most organizations are discovering their weaknesses during real attacks when it's already too late to fix them.
So what's the right approach, and what does the right approach look like for everyone kind of watching? What would you say are some of the best ways to go about it?
So I would go with 3 principles, okay? So the first one, we discussed about the visibility. So test fully, that's the first one, entire attack surface, not a sample of it, not 0.1% or 1%. The second thing, you need to test continuously. It's dynamic. Without disruption, you can do it. So you don't need to wait for a maintenance window and you don't disrupt the services while testing. So non-disruptive testing exists, you can use it. And the third one, once you got the full visibility, continuously test and got those vulnerabilities, now you would like to remediate them. So you want to remediate all of them and you can do it in bulk and easily, but the other step that is missing, you should validate it. Since you are running non-disruptive DDoS testing, so in a matter of minutes, once let's say you found a specific vulnerability and you configure your protection layers to address it, in a matter of minutes you can run another simulation and verify it. So there is a complete cycle of finding them, testing, remediating, and validating. Full circle.
So let's talk about kind of what we would consider to be organizations that already see this and already implementing this. What does it look like?
We are seeing the market shift towards solutions that are proactive, and non-disruptive DDoS testing is what allows the shift from reactive mitigation to proactive assurance. Instead of hoping your defenses will hold when an attack comes, because you've already tested them against basically all the possible points that can be attacked. So once you have basically tested everything, you know that you are prepared. And by the way, this is what MazeBolt Radar provides. It allows you to run those non-disruptive tests on all of your environments, finding those vulnerabilities. Then you have a managed service or without a managed service that can help you remediate them. And then, as I said, in a matter of minutes, you can simulate to validate that the fixes exist.
Yeah, I think we're almost at time's end here. Well, not really at time's end, but you've made great, fantastic time. We typically see people stretch to 30 minutes. You're stretching on the lower end of the 30 minutes. So I know our audience really does appreciate that because their time is valuable. But what would you tell our audience to walk away from after watching today's webinar? What are some tips you would give them?
Perfect. So 3 things, okay? So first of all, full visibility into the DDoS attack surface is now achievable, as we said, through MazeBolt Radar solution. Second thing, automated DDoS protection is a must, and I want to explain what's automated DDoS protection. Automated DDoS protection means when an attack comes, it's getting blocked automatically without any SOC intervention or your vendor intervention or clicking a button of under attack. You want to make sure that it's being detected as malicious traffic and being blocked outside. Once the 2 of those are basically done, you can feel safe. And I will make you feel calmer and sleep well at night, because I'll share with you that with our data that we have run on many enterprise environments, and even with the best protections in place, we've seen, as I said, 1/3 of the attack surface is vulnerable. But what we have seen with our data, that every enterprise that implemented continuous non-disruptive testing and remediated the found vulnerabilities has not experienced any DDoS-related damage since then. And we are talking about organizations that suffered from DDoS damages.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who watched today's webinar. We're really grateful. I hope everyone walked away with some extra information about kind of what this next generation of DDoS attacks could look like for us as practitioners, and what are some of the ways to go about mitigating those. So I appreciate Eyal and MazeBolt. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Hacker News webinar series. Security pros, these webinars happen because you ask for them. You go to thehackernews.com/webinars. Let us know what topics you want to hear about. We find the world's best experts and bring them to you right here, right now. So you can go check out the full library of great content we have at thehackernews.com/webinars. If you have any additional topics you want to hear about, let us know so we can go find great people like Eyal that can bring more value to you as practitioners. On behalf of myself, the team behind your favorite website, thehackernews.com, and our friends at MazeBolt, thank you all for watching today. Have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, everyone, stay cyber safe. Thank you.